Welcome back, everyone, to the Property Journey podcast. It's been a little while, Roy.
Been a busy few weeks.
Busy few weeks. Everyone knows summertime can be extremely busy, but back with another episode, episode 17, and a couple of wee talking points today, Roy, that I want to touch on. First thing is interest rates. We've had a bit of positive news.
At long last, I've been talking about it nearly every episode here. We've been waiting for these interest rates to be coming down. I was hoping Bank of England would have been dropping them a wee bit sooner than now, but at least we've got 1 quarter, so a quarter drop down. So it was, 5.25 down to 5%. So that means then all the other banks lend using that rate. So that means anybody who's going through a remortgage process or even buying a house, the cost of borrowing now is going to be slightly cheaper this month compared to what it was up until now.
And I was going to say it's good news, as you say, because obviously the knock-on effect is the banks use that rate, the mortgage rates come down slightly. So if you're in the position of remortgaging, then it's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
In a longer-term aspect, does it give a kind of reinforce a wee bit more positivity that it has started to come down? There may be future kind of changes going forward. I'm not expecting it to be a rapid pace.
Yes,
a lot of people expect it to plummet, but it's not going to. It could be another 0.25% in 2 or 3 months' time. But does it reinforce that kind of positivity around the market?
I think the best way of looking at it is have a straightforward look about it. So I appreciate a lot of people don't understand interest rates, and what they were looking at was, they were high, and then they're thinking they were previously low, and they're thinking to themselves, is it going to come right back down to where it was? I think that's maybe an unrealistic way of viewing interest rates. The way I would suggest to anybody that has limited information on it is, it would be fair to say that interest rates have now peaked. They're not going to be going, it went up to 5.25. It sat there for quite a long time, and it's now come back again. It's dropped back. So I wouldn't be hinging on the fact that it's going to drop way down to the crazy lows that it was before. So I think it's just a matter of, it should boost confidence with potential buyers that maybe they had looked about mortgages over the last few months. Maybe they were concerned about affordability. At least there should be confidence that that's almost the max that it's going to be for the foreseeable future. So don't be hinging on the fact of yes, I'll hold on. I've waited now, and if I wait another couple of months, then it's going to be cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It's not going to be like that. So it's just a matter of, it's peaked, and hopefully there's a bit more affordability out there.
And I don't want to be a downer in things, but I don't know if you've seen the news obviously around, and this is kind of getting into a wee bit more sort of economic side of things, and some people may have noticed it, some people might not have noticed it, some people probably won't care. But it's the American markets recently sort of crashed there quite a bit because there was news of an American recession potentially. Hasn't been confirmed, but there is talk about it. Could it potentially have a knock-on effect going forward?
Well, all economies have a knock-on impact with each other. I personally, through Northern Ireland, through the UK, although it maybe hasn't been fully publicised, but there has been a big squeeze generally. You just know, the retail market's difficult at the minute, the furnishings market's difficult at the minute. All those non-essentials are getting it a wee bit tighter. People are starting to, over the last probably 6-12 months, people have been thinking more about their spending. So they've maybe wanted to keep their luxuries. So they're going out for the breakfast and the brunch and things like that. But apparently the likes of frozen food sales had increased. So the likes of Iceland, buyers shifting from main street supermarkets to the likes of Lidl. So people have been just cutting back their spending a wee bit, and that's simply because things have been that wee bit tighter. So in my view, yes, there's been a recession in the UK, maybe just hasn't been fully publicised. People haven't talked about it a wee bit more. So to come back to your question, yes, the American market, well, it's going to have a bit of an impact, but I wouldn't, it's nothing that's going to be impacting property from the side of things, because looking at it as a whole, even though with interest rates being as high as they have been, the market here in Northern Ireland over the last 3, 4, 5 years has been really, really strong. prices are still moderate, they're still rising. And if you have a good house and a good product, it's going on the market and it is selling within weeks, no problem. And there's some agents that are getting houses still sold in days. So that's all the confidence that you need.
I think I probably would have noticed just looking at a few things was that it seems to be more purchases than sales at the minute, and that's simply because of obviously
there's a big shortage. Big shortage.
The shortage. And the other thing that I noticed was obviously with the rates now dropping, is there potentially that increase in house prices again? Just as the market picks up, prices might start to increase. Just that, I'm not talking tens of thousands here, but potentially there could be a wee bit of an uptick in prices.
I would say prediction would be, again, at the minute there's a big shortage of houses for sale, and then it's all about buyers and sellers. So by dropping the interest rates, that might increase a few more people who are wanting to buy a house, and that will then create a bit more demand. There's still a shortage of the houses, so that just means maybe previously there was only 4 people interested in a property, there could now be 5 or 6, so that just extra 1 or 2 person interested can then just start to push a price up a little bit. Now, people are still realistic. I've been talking to a lot of buyers and I'll be asking them about the price. They're still very, yes, this is the price it might be marketed at, this is the price I'm willing to go to, and it's realistic. Whereas probably 2 years ago, coming out of COVID, it was just a frenzy. People were just going bonkers, bidding away. But I think people just a bit more common sense now. And yes, they might put an extra bid or 2 on. So in the long run, that will probably, yes, help bolster an increase. But no, I wouldn't be hedging any bets off it that prices are going to be going
catastrophic.
Catastrophic. But nice, you want a good, just a solid market, and it's been like that. And there's certainly all the evidence there to show that it's going to continue like that.
Well, that then is kind of the update of what's been ongoing since we were last on air as such. But it has been busy. You can see it. You can see, the amount of properties that are being sold. And, it's still, Northern Ireland, the housing market is it's unbelievably strong. Just as you say, highlighted, we've continued to highlight it on the podcast, just that supply and demand sort of issue that's nearly there.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to talk about in this episode was looking at sort of property investment. A lot of people have asked us at what level or at what stage could they potentially begin to invest in property. And by what that I mean is I suppose the main thing is, could you invest in property without any money?
Coincidentally, I was having a consultation with a client yesterday, and we were working out, what the plan was, and what I kept saying was, and I'm actually going to say the same here, is what is the goal? And a lot of people think about buying property first of all, and then working it out that way. But I would work backwards. So what is the goal? What is it that you want? Do you want to have 1 house? Do you want to have 20 houses? And then start to work back, and then go from there. So that means, you could actually buy houses without money. And yes, you go online, you could watch loads of seminars and go to different places, and they'll tell you all these things. It is possible, but you have to put a lot of effort into it. I could teach you a strategy, I could show you a strategy, no problem at all. But if you're willing to put that effort and those long hours into it, yes, you could literally buy a house with little money. But that's for those who have got the grit and the determination. But for, if it's something where you're looking to buy a house just nice and steady, comfortable, conventional way, generally you're looking at about a deposit of 25% of the purchase price. So to give you an example, if you're buying something at the lower end of the market, £80,000 house, there's not many of them out there at the minute, but £80,000 house, you're going to have to put down a deposit of 25%. So it's about 20 grand. And then it's going to give you, if you look hard enough and you get the right sort of product, it'll give you, a good return, very good return.
Because I know, obviously, it's not dependent on the figures. It's dependent, as you say, on what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
you could have £5,000, but you could have 10 or 15 people all put it in, you know, buy a house or whatever, and you're getting a 5% return on whatever, or it depends how many people's involved in it, you know. Or is your goal that, as you say, you want to have 20 houses in the next 4 to 5 years, but you've a pot of cash sitting there to be able to go and do it? So is it, rather than down to the figures, because I was going to discuss, you know, kind of, for example, I've got 50 grand here, what would my strategy be? Would I be better buying 2 houses, you know, and splitting, as you say there, if it's a 100 grand house, put 25 grand down on one, put 25 grand down on another. That's my pot split. I've now got 2 houses, it's generating rental income. Or do I go and spend the 50,000 and buy a £200,000 house? You know, is it down to the strategy and the goal, rather than, you know, I've got 50 grand or I've got 100 grand?
There's a lot more to it than what people think. You know, quite rightly, as you said, you know, what really, really bugs me is some people think, buying a house, it's easy. And what they do is they go and they'll search online and they'll pick the cheapest house. And then they think, oh, well, I'll rent it myself, or I'll give it a wee lick of paint myself, and I'll stick it up on Facebook for rent, and I'll do it all myself. It's easy. That's not how you do it. It's actually quite embarrassing whenever you actually sit down and educate those people on how to do it. You know, there's so many things involved. You know, you need to have the knowledge. You need to know how much money have you, what's the end goal, what's your view on risk, what's your view on stress. You know, for some people it might be a case of, I can't handle a phone call from a tenant at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night saying my boiler's stopped working. You know, for some people who own property, they get that phone call, that they get that sick feeling in their stomach. You know, so figures is very, very important. To kind of go off on an example here, I was working with a guy recently who I've been educating him. So I've been going through our consultancy with him. He was on to his 3rd house, so he had a good job. He was earning roughly about, you know, 30,000 a year. He had bought a house, thought, yes, I'll buy the cheapest house, took into it himself, you know, ripping up the carpets and painting and organising the trades guys and things like that. And he was making really, really good money. That's what he told me. And when I looked at the figures of it, I was like, right, okay. So he went to buy another house, and I says to him, right, I want to run an example here with you. I says, let's sit down and see what needs done. So we worked out what all needs done, you know, new kitchen, new bathroom, ripping up the tiles and everything. And I got a price then through from a contractor, the contractors that I use, and give him a time frame as to how long it was going to take. And he was like, no, that's far too much. That'll never work. I can't afford that. I'll do it myself. I'll do it for far cheaper. So I says, right, no problem. So I bought him a stopwatch. Don't know if you remember stopwatches, Chris.
I do, yes.
You do everything on your phone.
I've been watching the Olympics, so I have. So
maybe. Back in my day, you know, the PE teachers just walked around with a stopwatch around their neck. They didn't actually use it or do anything with it. But I bought him a stopwatch, and I taped up the screen on it, and all he could see was when it was obviously working. And I says to him, there's that stopwatch. You stop and start that every single time you have any involvement to do with that house. So that means if you're driving to the house to check it, to meet a trades guy, to open up the house, to clear out the house, doing the work yourself, anything whatsoever, you start and stop that. He did that. It took him a lot longer than what a contractor would have done. And when we sat down and worked out the time that he spent on it to the profit that he thought he'd made, as in how much the house was now worth, taking that profit, if you want to call it, dividing it out between the number of hours, given hourly rate, and that hourly rate was in and around minimum wage. So had he actually bought the house, used the contractor, and he just spent that exact same time in his own job, so working a few extra hours, maybe working a weekend or something like that, or even starting a side hustle, he actually would have made a lot more money. So it's all about the figures and all about having a team.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And I suppose the figures come back to it because in that example, for example, amount of money, if he, you know, if you had the money to be able to pay the contractors, then you're in a fairly comfortable position. But if you're starting out with no money,
Yeah.
then you're not in a position to pay for the contractors because you don't have a pot of money.
Yeah.
So is that kind of where, as you say, that risk factor, that, you know, stress factor, you know, if you're going in to do that work yourself, you are having to do it yourself because you can't fall back on a contractor because you don't have the funds for it. Is that kind of where that all comes into the strategy as such, and what the plan is then?
You know, yes, if you don't have the money, strictly speaking, you shouldn't be doing anything if you don't have the money. But okay, my view would be you could maybe do that once or twice just to maybe to build up a pot. But if you are really serious about it and the strategy is, you know, it doesn't pay, as I say, you'll be working for less than minimum wage. So, you know, you're safer, you bring the contractors in, and it's not only making you more money, it's time is money. Because it's all about the flow of money. The quicker you can get a house rented out, the quicker that rent is coming in, and the quicker then that starts to maybe even pay you back again. You know, so from everything from, you know, getting the contractors to get the work done quick, you know, from the very, very beginning, getting the right solicitor to get it done as quickly as possible, getting the right contractors in to get the house ready, getting the right estate agent, or ideally a letting agent who specialises in rentals. They're getting you the right tenant as quickly as possible, and then they're managing it for you as efficiently and as quickly as possible. And that is, you know, all time, and time means money.
And as you say, like, whenever it comes to it, it's what you're hoping to get out of it, you know. And as you say, if you can't handle that 9 o'clock phone call on a Saturday night because, you know, the boiler's broke, or, you know, there's a mouse got into the house or something, and you're expected to go and deal with it, is that then where you sit and think about the actual type of property that you're buying? So by that I mean, an older house is generally going to have a few more problems than, you know, a fairly recently newly built house.
Yeah.
Obviously, a newly built house is going to be slightly dearer than an older house. Is that kind of then where, if you know there's going to be slightly more problems with that, and you don't want the headaches and the bother, and, you know, there's damp getting in, and there's a leak coming from somewhere, and, you know, the typical issues that you're going to get with an older house, is that where then you think within your strategy, well, would I be better buying a house that's maybe 5 or 10 years old, because I know that those types of problems are unlikely to arise?
Strategy. Like, to give you 2 examples, if it's something whereby somebody's focused to building a property portfolio, well, then they're more so about building the monthly cash flow. So if that's the case, then you buy the cheaper house. The cheaper house generally has better returns and works far better. But with that, then it's an older house, the more difficulties with it. The other alternative is some people maybe just want to be a wee bit more conventional, play it safe, buy that, you know, better house in a better area, maybe a bit newer, and then maybe the return on it wouldn't be as good, but, you know, generally speaking, then it's going to need less repairs. But that's something where you need to get to get prepared for. If you own property, everybody has this goal, or this, they think it's glamorous, you know, have a house or 2 and then, you know, running around checking the house. But again, that's all well and good if you have time, and it's you're not actually making money off it. It's just more of a hobby.
Yeah.
You're actually wasting time. So it's something whereby if somebody's loads and loads of time, that's okay. But, you know, for a lot of people, maybe you have a young family, you're running around after kids and organising, you don't have time to be dealing with things like that. And that's why in my view, property should be hands off. You leave it to the experts, they take care of everything, and you just see the money coming in at the end of the month. I could give you an example of times. I have a property management business. I've been heavily involved in property for years, and I could give you a number of occasions, the likes of Christmas Eve. I've been crawling through roof spaces at 6 o'clock at night on a Christmas Eve for tenants. You know, that's the sort of things that you have to do. That's a sacrifice.
Well, that's and this is the thing, because I do agree with the statement that you made earlier, that it's sold as this like glamorous, nearly, you know, job, or interest that you can get yourself into, and it's not. You know, it's until you get to a certain point where you, as you say, you can step away and let the people, you know, the experts get on with it, and essentially you see that cash flow coming in and you've nothing really to do with it, then that sounds fairly glamorous to me. But that initial kind of getting into it, getting built up, getting started as to what your goal is and beginning to achieve that goal, it's not all glamorous. It's, as you say, it's that risk factor, that stress, that, you know, have you borrowed money? How much money have you borrowed? That's maybe overhanging. You know, are you still paying off your current mortgage? Do you have enough that, for example, you've taken a mortgage out in a house, you can't seem to find a tenant for 3 months. Do you have enough money then, or cash flow, to be able to pay for the second mortgage as well as your own? You know, is this all the questions that when you're dealing with clients that you're asking to make sure that they're ready to get involved?
You know, it's all about, you get, be properly trained. You know, you don't, if I'm sick, if I go into a hospital, I want to make sure that I'm being seen to by a doctor who has been trained and has experience. You know, buying a house, people think it's, as I said, it's easy, but what they're doing is they're borrowing thousands, tens of thousands of pounds to manage a property or an asset that they've got no skill, no experience, or nothing about, but they've all that risk. You know, they think it's easy or it is simple, and truth be told, it's a bit of a lottery. You know, I've come across investors who've done that. They've owned a house and they've done it for maybe 3, 4, 5 years, and it has all run very smoothly, but you know, it's a lottery. At some point something will go wrong, and if you don't have the experience, the skill, or the right sort of people to turn to, that's whenever it all goes wrong. You know, it's like flying a small plane. You know, it can't be that difficult, is it? So, you know, you just a few controls, hop in there, so you just pull the lever and you drive, you know, away you go.
Sure, I've done it in the Xbox, like, so it's all right.
But, you know, it's the exact same. You know, would I go out and buy a £100,000 two-seater plane, you know, £100,000, and just go up into it? No, I get tutored to be mentored by somebody, I practice, and then at that point I get the plane. And you know, at that point, at least then I've been well trained, I've been educated, I can do it. Or what you normally do is you pay somebody to fly you somewhere. Yeah. That's the exact same concept.
So, in terms of then, you know, discussing at what stage you kind of get involved then, you know, obviously looking at what you've noted there, 25% of, say, you know, your average house to get involved. So if it's a £100,000 house, you're looking at about 25 grand for your deposit. In terms of then, if you're on the higher end of the scale, you know, are you sitting down with your clients then and just straight away discussing, right, what's your pot here? How many houses are you looking at achieving, you know, and working from there, you know? So is it back to personal kind of goals as to, you know, is it 2 houses you want? Is it 4 houses you want? You know, is it 10 houses you want? You know, here's how many we can achieve in the first year. Here's how many that we should be able to achieve in the second year, third year, fourth year, whatever it happens to be, depending on how long they want to be involved in it. Yeah.
There's so many questions, like I could talk for hours on end. I'm just you know, shooting out wee small bits of it. So I sit down with clients, it's like a full questionnaire right down to, you know, their personality, you know, because again, personality is all about how can they handle stress and risk and what have you. Do they want to be hands-on, hands-off? Generally, hands-off is the best way. View to risk. You know, a lot of people are very much, well, maybe they don't care about their own family home and they'll just max out and borrow as much as they can. And, you know, they've got nothing to lose. They maybe don't have, you know, kids and family and what have you. And you've got the other side of things where people have worked hard for their family home and they don't want to lose the shirt off the back, as people say. So you have to weigh that all up, what the end goal is, what the strategy is, and also affordability as well, because you have to look at these things of, everybody thinks it was very simple. Here's the monthly mortgage payment, this is what the rent's going to be, and there's my profit. But you also have to factor in, there's going to be times, no matter what, where that rent isn't going to come in. So you need to see as, how can that be? How you can you afford to top that up in the meantime? And then there's also, which I was working with people maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you were factoring in, right, well, there's definitely going to be an interest rate rise. Let's stress test your portfolio to see how far can you go to before you're going to be crumbling on affordability. And again, are you going to be able to top that up, and can you afford to top that up? So there's so much to take on board whenever you're buying a property.
And I think it's worth noting there, as you say, there is times where the rent's not going to come in, but there's also going to be times where something goes wrong with the house that you have to front the cost for.
Yeah.
There's also times then that, things just will not go to plan. And if you have that, for example, if you have a portfolio of 8 houses, essentially you've got insurance, obviously, your house insurance. Yeah. There's 8 properties that you have your house insurance for. And if you have maybe 4 of them where you've missed out 2 or 3 months worth of rent, 2 or 3 months worth of rent could be what in today's money, possibly anything from £1,800.
Like even small houses, estate houses now are going for maybe £800 a month.
So there's 4 times 2,400. You're sitting at 10 grand essentially. And that's only in the space of 3 months.
And just when you've said that, it sparked something with me, because rents have risen massively over the last 18 months, and the cost of living and everything's getting more expensive. There's actually an increase in the number of tenants falling into arrears. And what I've found is once a tenant falls into arrears, that's it. They start to bury their head in the sand generally, or everything else just starts to crumble. So it's not the case of if somebody misses a rent payment, it then you normally find if they miss one, that's it. It's gone. And it's all about having a good agent who spots that and is on it, working with them to say, right, what is the issues? Can we help you maybe apply for some universal credit, or let's actually sit down, look at your expenses. Let's even get some sort of a payment through here just to tease it, just to get it to work. But otherwise, if you don't put that effort in, that rent stops coming in, and the only way to put that tenant is out of the house, and then you're going through a legal process. You've got the worry and the stress of knowing that person is potentially going to be made homeless, where they're going to go to, and then going through the court process could take 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It all depends. So that's all those costs building up.
As you say, the good thing would be to be able to sit down and kind of go, look, I missed a payment or whatever, but I'll put an extra 20 or 30 quid a month over the next couple of months to get that payment back again. As you say, a good agent will be able to go in and spot that and kind of go, right, well, we need to put something in here so that you're starting to clear that off, rather than forgetting about it or starting to bury your head, or I owe £400 now, or whatever it happens to be. As long as you're that's sort of being managed for you, then as you say, a good agent should be able to manage that straight away.
Yeah.
To ensure that 1, the tenant doesn't bury their head, and 2, you're not sitting with a bit of a disaster on your hands as that process begins.
Yeah.
It's back to being a lot. There is a lot in it. It's not something that you should be jumping, sort of head first into. As you say, it will take that questionnaire, a lot of those questions, to decide whether or not, one, you're suitable for it, because a lot of people won't be suitable for it. As you say, can you handle stress? If the answer to that is no, don't do it. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Can you handle sort of having those figures over your head where you've borrowed 150,000 on top of whatever you've maybe already got your mortgage? Can you handle that?
Yeah.
The answer to that's no, don't do it. But if you can, and it's something that you're willing to do, and you're maybe passionate about it, or you want to get involved in it, then I suppose the best person to talk to is you.
Yeah. Well, that's the good thing is I've noticed over the last 6 months, more and more podcasts that I'm doing. There's more and more people who's getting in touch with me, getting booked in with me. We're going through a meeting, and we're basically we're filling out that questionnaire, working out that strategy, and I've been helping people to hit their goals. So more than happy to sit down with anybody. If anybody's interested, even just a quick chat, go for a coffee or what have you, but feel free, get in touch, get you booked in, and we'll get those goals, get those dreams achieved for you.
I'm glad they're approaching you and not me, because as I say, I've only
We'll
been
get you
here for
trained up.
I've only been here for the 17 episodes, not for the 17 years. Right, I think that's sort of everything I wanted to touch on. As I say, it was kind of looking at those figures, looking at in terms of that investment side of things, what you would be looking at. But we kind of know that it's down to your goals. The finances also matter, but it's what you want to achieve and what you're hoping to get out of it. So there's a wee bit there about obviously the interest rates and stuff at the start. So thank you very much, everyone. That's episode 17. Fingers crossed Roy will be back a wee bit sooner than the last couple of weeks, but that's just the joys of the summer months.
Absolutely.
So thanks very much, Roy. Pleasure as always.
Indeed. Thank you.